All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Aether Hour. We are here with Cody, Tyler, and Gina. And Cody is going to be continuing to play through some of the game past the public demo again today. And we are going to be talking about just generally like indie games and maybe a little bit of the state of the industry, how we are trying to stand out amongst the bajillion games it feels like are coming out every single week, because we are definitely trying to do some crazy and different things over here at Seismic Squirrel. So, so yeah, the first thing I was just kind of thinking about is like the start of indie games, because not too long ago I played Braid for the first time, and I feel like that was like the actual like start of indie games as far as I know. Like Braid, Fez, and Super Meat Boy, right? Those were kind of the.
Geometry Wars was the other big one.
I never played that one.
That was like the twin stick shooter. Yeah, that was the first one I remember playing on the old Xbox 360 back in the day.
Nice. Yeah, and they recently released like the Braid whatever anniversary it was edition, and I played it, and I can understand the appeal, but it was not necessarily for me. Have you guys played that game?
Mm-hmm. I have, yes. It's speaking like of the time when
Uh
Braid
huh.
came out. I think I was in game design school, so like that was the darling. That was the it's not like anything else because we were
Yeah.
in like the midst of like everything was either a World War II shooter or a kart racer
Hmm.
or a licensed game. Like movie license games were still really, really big back then. So to have anything that felt particularly different was seen as like a sign from the heavens
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
Um, so like, I remember when I played Braid. I think it was around the same time. Like this was maybe like 1 or 2 years removed from like Prince of Persia,
Okay.
Sands of Time. It's like that was the first one to like really bring in like using time travel or time manipulation as like a main gameplay feature. But this was like its primary use case there was like some light puzzles or combat. But Braid was like now you're doing like full playthroughs of puzzles, resetting time and going back and like doing it a different way. But the duplicate of you is doing different things. Like it just kind
Yeah.
of took
Yeah.
it to the next level. And yeah, it was a big deal. I thought and like it played like Mario. It was
Hmm.
like, what if Mario was for grown-ups? That was kind of like the vibe that Braid had when it came out, in my community at least.
Hmm.
Um, so like I know a lot of my friends and I like really, really liked it. Um, I wouldn't have called it like my game of the year or anything else like that, but it was really like a breath of fresh air. And then seeing the once you find out that like it was like one dude who made it, like it was just Jonathan Blow who made it with like maybe the odd bits of support from here or there from different folks, but he was kind of the primary developer on it. You're like, wow, you can make a game with one person again? That's wild.
Yeah.
And I feel like that opened up the floodgates to the original kind of envisionment of indie devs as like 1 to 3 people making really small bite-sized games that were like $5 to $10.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I
Yeah.
think
I
like the
I think it's like
oh, go ahead.
it is definitely a time and place thing though, because like I can appreciate all of the things that you're talking about. It was just like playing it now after having played so many different and wacky kinds of indie games. It feels like very limited. It feels a little bit obtuse in both the storytelling and the puzzle solving. Like I don't know if
Mhm.
I'm just so used to my hand being held nowadays in games, but there were some of the puzzles that I was just like beating my head against the wall, and I had to cheat and look it up because I was just like I just want to get through this game and see what the heck it's all about. So yeah, that
I
kind
mean,
of. Yeah, go ahead.
and I was gonna say I'm in the same place with. I don't know if it how it happened. I'm sure there's some weird traumatic childhood memory associated with playing games that involve time. Uh, but for some reason, it's just one of those things that I kind of stay away from in the same way that I usually stay away from Metroidvanias because
Mm,
there's something insanely anxiety inducing about exploring a place with hidden objectives and then having time become a factor where it's not about finding the things, but when you find them, and that's too much for me. Like I tried playing Animal Well when that came out
Mhm.
and that was really big, and I was like, cool, let's go find all the hidden things. And then being a competent person at playing games, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is too much for me. But that's just how my brain works, and I think similar thing with Braid of like that's just you're talking about puzzles being hidden, and I think it's just it's one of those things of like I play games to relax and unwind, and
Mhm.
if I'm trying to think about a million things at once, that's not how I personally do it. However, this whole trend is breaking a little bit because I don't know, have you guys seen the game coming out called Recur? Or maybe it's already come out.
No.
You know,
Uh, so really cool.
See.
The I actually first got to see it at Courage XL at GDC last year.
Okay.
It was we go into this little indie space where all these games are showcasing, and Recur was stuck in this corner uh, behind our booth actually, and so I remember feeling bad of like, oh, they're not going to get as much visibility, but like out of all the games there is probably one that I watched the most of
Mm.
because it has this thing where if you move forward in the game, time progresses forward, and if you move backwards, time progresses backwards. And so uh, it's a it's a puzzle and trying to work through the scenes. It's narrative driven. It's absolutely gorgeous of a game. And it made me think for the first time in a long time. It's like, oh, maybe a time game wouldn't be terrible. Um, so that's definitely on the wish list to eventually play because it's just, man, it looks good. Um,
That's cool. Yeah, I just looked at the graphical style is really interesting. It almost has like a like cartoon in the sense like there's black outlines and I think it almost looks
hmm,
like there's like comic booky kind of speech bubbles and stuff like that here and there. But yeah. Yeah, there's something about puzzles in games where for me it's like I like the feeling of feeling smart, right? Like you finish a puzzle,
hmm,
you're like, man, I was so smart for feeling that. But sometimes when it's just so intense and gets you to think outside the box, it's I don't know anymore. I can't sit and do it. I do like puzzles, but I don't like to be frustrated at them nowadays, you know? So like
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I agree with you. I like puzzles that make me feel smart.
Hmm.
Puzzles that remind me how smart I'm not actually.
Yeah.
That those those puzzles aren't high on the to-do list.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, I brought up Fez as well. That was another one where like what was cool about that game from what I remember because it was a really long time ago that I played it, but you could kind of get through the main game without having to do all the crazy puzzles. But if you wanted to go real hardcore, you could like look on these weird like graphs on the wall and like piece things together. And if you guys hadn't played it, what was cool about that game was it's a kind of like a 2D platformer, but you have the ability to
mhm.
like rotate the entire world, like
Oh
spin it
yeah,
on its
it's really
axis.
cool.
So like the entire like there might be a door on the complete opposite side of the box, so you have to spin it all the way around to be able to like walk around and see that door. So
yeah.
it's very ingenious game design, and I feel
Oh yeah.
like back then games were it was I don't want to say it was easier, but it was like there was just the main mechanic that was like the big standout thing that made the indie game feel like, whoa, this is totally different. But nowadays it's like, you know, thinking about our game, we're in a sense almost kind of sort of having to compete with some double A and triple A sort of mentalities in terms of like breadth and like just what people can
Mhm.
expect. So yeah, I mean, our game definitely has a lot going on in terms of the visuals, in terms of the car combat and the customization aspects, and I think a lot of that has to do with just expectations as well as just generally what you know people kind of make nowadays. Like you kind of are enticed to make a bigger experience as an indie studio. Maybe that's just my perspective. Do you
Mhm.
guys kind of feel like that too?
I remember seeing an article a little while back. That we live in a post mechanics game environment, and I think on one hand, I agree with games needing to be bigger, have more for sure. But I also, part of me hopes that that's not exactly true. And the reason being is that, taking a half hour to go through the latest indie releases, you see a lot of small games that are, got these brand new ideas. They focus on them, they execute them well. And I still think that's really cool. I guess it's when it comes to the scale of it all, of what makes the most money, then yeah, Breath is gonna do really well. Uh, Speaking of puzzle games that make me feel silly, Blueprints was
Hmm.
like that, and I think that's actually a pretty good example of they had this really solid core experience of a mechanic, and but the game is so much bigger than simply a roguelike house builder. Um, and there's all these hidden areas and additional puzzles and narrative and story that they go into to build it out to make it more. I mean, I don't know how many hours just to finish like the main quest, and out of oh gosh, how many achievements? I only have like two. After let's see how many. Yeah, after 23 hours, I've got one achievement out of 12.
Oh man.
Because I think the main hook of the game is such a small portion of it.
Mm.
Um, and I think yeah, games have to go bigger and more in order to kind of pull in and to feel complete.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing with a lot of these smaller indie games of your is that they focus on a single mechanic and they drill down on that mechanic and they showed as many elements and facets of that as possible. But I think there's still stuff lacking when it comes to it feeling like a complete game, right?
Hmm.
Like they made something fulfilling. They made, timing or jumping or whatever really fulfilling, but it's like they finished a single piece, a pillar. And I with game development philosophy, idea, process, what have you, kind of moving forward. It feels like games are expected to be like not just a single pillar well built, but you have to build the whole house all together in order to really stand out. And it's just that's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, everything's just getting bigger and bigger. I mean, I think a good example of like a balance of still feeling like a somewhat small game but having that meat is Celeste. It's got
Mm,
very basic mechanics of running and jumping. You kind of get that like double jump thing. I think when you hit those little like crystal points or whatever. There's climbing. There's very very basic mechanics, and it's level based. You go through the levels. You try to get to the top of the mountain or whatever. But then
mhm,
once you beat the game, it unlocks like a B side playthrough where it's like there's super super hard levels. So you still kind of get
mm,
that feeling of like, oh, this isn't just like, a platformer where I beat it and I'm totally done. I've still got more. And I think that's something that if that wasn't included, there's so many things, exterior factors you need to think of nowadays as well. And I'm sure one of the reasons they added something like that in was like streamers. Like, oh, streamers are going to get a kick out of trying to beat the really hard levels, and people are going to watch them beat the hard levels and want to make content out of all the secret stuff. So it's not so much anymore just thinking about like how can I make my one singular experience super super interesting. It's like how can there be diversity within the experience to, I don't know, to for different types of content or different reactions from people checking out the game. So like in a game
mhm.
like ours, like we have choices, we have different types of combat, we have different builds, we have different characters you can kind of interact with. So I mean,
Mhm.
even a game like ours that's somewhat linear has that range that I feel like was, like you were saying, Tyler, if that wasn't in there, it wouldn't have felt like a complete meaty experience.
Yeah, I think it's you need to add bells and whistles in order to make the thing
Mm.
feel better. Or maybe it's more like a competent game mechanic feels like a good solid skeleton, and you can do a lot with just a skeleton. But I think people are looking for something prettier to look at than just a skeleton when they're
Hmm.
playing a game, right? They need muscles and tissue and makeup and all that jazz. So, I like to think that when we approached Aether and Iron, um, perhaps a bit compulsively so. We try to round out things as much as we can to make it feel meaty by adding additional stuff. You know, the you know, we've got you've got the main story, but we've got, an opportunity to get to know your heroes more. You have the opportunity to kind of explore the science side of things. We try to, at least from a narrative standpoint, we try to break up the world into like different themes and make sure that the main themes that you're hitting, you have the opportunity to explore throughout and kind of dive into. So it doesn't just feel like a bare bones version of something, but there's a
Hmm.
little bit more. Um,
Yeah, I mean, even
now,
beyond, sorry, picking like actual choices. There's many opportunities where like you can just click uh, a dialogue option to just learn more about a scenario in general. Like,
mhm.
what would you say, being the writer, is the downside of just kind of like blowing through the story without getting those extra tidbits? Like, it was there kind of a philosophy with writing some of those things where you're like, oh, this stuff is always going to contain this type of information or something like that? Or was it always just kind of like, this is an extra to what you're reading?
Oh, that's a good question. I think how we like to approach it, or maybe how I approached it, and then I forced it upon my team, and they might have their own more uh I don't know, dignified examples. I don't know if dignified is the right word. Anyway, big BioShock fan, and one of the parts that I love about BioShock is I love the ability to pick up the recordings, find out more about the world.
Hmm.
Right. And, at the time that was revolutionary. And now it's a little bit more like, why are people leaving tape recorders everywhere? How does that make sense? Why?
Yeah.
Right. You get more about the lore and the history, and it's amazing, but you ask the question of why. And so I think being a fan of kind of giving more about the world, of just providing context of what you're living in and working in, that part is always fascinating to me. I mean, I've played through BioShock multiple times just to get through all the recordings to make sure I have them all. And then there's some that are bugged out, so I went to listen to them online because it's cool. But then on the other hand too, of having that admiration, also knowing of, okay, these pieces of information need to make sense. They can't just be a collectible.
Hmm.
Me and the creative director, me and Dwayne, like to talk about kind of our uh, thoughts on small talk in video games, and in our game of, hey, tell me about where you grew up. Tell me about why you wear a hat, which in most contexts, in most conversations, you wouldn't ask somebody that just casually, like the world is falling apart, and you're like, hey, buddy, I hear you like the color blue. Can you tell me more about that? It's like that's silly, right? Like, and so what we wanted to do is we wanted to make conversations feel real, as much real as we can, where conversation topics and questions and like conversation hooks actually kind of make sense, but then they allow you to dive in and just feel more of the world, to vibe with it more. Now, being a video game, there are some of those conversations, they happen. In fact, I was recording right before this with a voice actor, and it was the uh you're shady, tell me more about where you grew up type of thing.
Hmm.
And like some of that's just given, because in a video game we have to balance two things. One is that realism of, these are real people living in a real context, and they have to talk normally as regular people. And on the other hand, of like, this is a video game and the player wants to find out some things that wouldn't really make sense in the context, right? Like,
Hmm.
you want to actually know about the character. And if you've known the character for years, you're not going to be asking, hey, tell me again how you did this whole thing, even though it's like critical to your character. And we just need to put in that opportunity to ask. So we have to balance a lot of those, but really we try to make it feel real and lived in, and the types of questions that come up naturally as much as you can.
And I feel
Yeah.
like, I mean, this is maybe something to talk about when we talk more about narrative design, but I was just thinking about it. Like, it must have been hard to incorporate information as extra and make sure that it wasn't integral to a story point later on, right? Like, you had to really
Oh
make
yeah.
sure like that some of that info wasn't, that was, you know, you could miss it, and then it's like they talk about it later on, you know. So how do you, like, did you have like a, I don't know, a way of indicating like this is extra dialogue, we will not reference this later on in the main script, you know, kind of thing?
Yeah, I I wish I could say that there was a really organized lore Bible that outlined which points could be
Yeah.
talked about and which couldn't. But in reality, it was we wrote through the game as a core team. So we went through the plot, we know all the main points, and then afterwards we came back in and we seeded stuff that wasn't touched elsewhere.
Mm.
I think uh, one of the benefits we have of not being like an origin story, like we're just dropping the player in the middle of stuff,
Hmm.
means that a lot of the character's backstory, or yeah, 90% of the backstory about why they're here, or kind of what is this established world, isn't pivotal to the main plot, right? The main plot is fairly straightforward in what you're trying to do, and we can explore the characters and the world without needing to dive into it. Now, there were certain things that were more difficult that we had to be careful with, that we wanted to pace out. I think that's one of the biggest challenges we've had with this, like these questions, casual questions, these learn mores that you can or ask people, is that we want them to be paced out so that there's some degree of kind of progression.
Mm.
Um, and that matches with like maybe the tone of what's going on with the story. So early on, you might ask a question about, you might ask a character that's at your home base about trying to think of, how do you like, how do you like living here, or like, how's it living here since X happened?
Hmm.
And then the further on we go, that might turn into, hey, we just completed something really big, what are your thoughts on that? Or going into, and then leaving the more emotionally deep questions at the very end. So like Cress has a lot of this progression where, you're more surface level, you're supposed to be good friends, and that has certain questions that go with it. But then, as more and more is revealed over the course of the story, it's also reflected in kind of the questions that you can ask her outside of the main story that get more emotionally deep, or
Mm.
more thoughtful. And even though you could talk about those learn mores, those questions outside the context of the story, they kind of match the tone and pacing of it. Um, so that we can have that progression. The player feels like as stakes are ramped up, I'm also getting to know these characters a little bit more.
Gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually just went into Confluence just to see, look at our future achievements for Steam and see, do we make this an achievement? And it was pitched, but not approved. So not experience every dialogue option in the entire game.
Oh
Yeah, no
no,
way.
no, that should not be achievement. That's
No.
Yeah,
punishing. I'm a
yeah, it didn't make it. It was rejected. So
oh,
fear
good, good.
not, viewers.
Uh,
I like to think of myself as a casual achievement hunter, or at least I become obsessive about a game to try to get achievements. I think that's what drove me nuts with Blueprints also, of
mm.
like I have been playing for hours and nothing, and then looking at the achievements and be like, oh no, that is such a time commitment.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think for people that do enjoy the game, I think we will provide some fun Easter eggs, things to go out of your way and find, and maybe a dedicated playthrough just to clean up some stuff. But I would never want to be so punishing as to experience every dialogue choice. Jeez Louise,
No.
that's sadistic.
Yeah, as someone that likes getting the platinum trophy on PlayStation games, I definitely like my achievements and trophies to feel like attainable. like like I can do them
Oh
within
yeah.
my lifetime and not want to
Hmm.
pull my hair out. So, I was thinking,
I
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as far as like trophies are concerned, I'm weird. I've got one particular dev that I will go and get the platinum trophies for every single time, just like inadvertently. And
Is
one
it
dev that I will
Ubisoft?
avoid them. No,
Oh.
I got
Ah.
spurned on Assassin's Creed 2 and never again.
Mm.
Oh.
Oh
Assassin's Creed
yeah.
2 had one achievement where I was like, I had them all except I missed one, and it was getting all of the feathers, I believe, was
Mm-hmm.
the last achievement I didn't get. There's one trapped in the Vatican, and if you don't get it while you're at the Vatican the first time through, you will never get it ever again.
Brutal.
And I did not want to play through it again. And I was like, I will sit there with that 98 or 99% on Assassin's Creed 2 for the rest of my life. And
I have that on a couple
Ooh.
games. It drives me nuts.
But
No,
Insomniac, I will
Okay.
platinum all of their games now.
Those
Just
are
like
good.
I started with like I think Resistance 2 or 3 on the PlayStation 3, maybe, or Ratchet and Clank Crack in Time, I think is what it was. I got the platinum on that, and I think that was my very first platinum, and I was like, oh, that feels good. And like it wasn't impossible to get. It just like took a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
So Spider-Man, all the Ratchet and Clanks, Sunset Overdrive on the Xbox One, I got all of the achievements on those. They're just like the one company that I will go out of my way to platinum. And Guerrilla Games is another one that I'll do it for, like with Horizon and Killzone.
Yeah, that was a good platinum.
But Naughty Dog, no.
No.
Naughty Dog's achievements for like Uncharted and The Last of Us are just like a grind.
Because their
And
collectibles are like in the weirdest places. Like,
and then like get killed, like, get a certain amount of kills, get a certain amount of
Yeah.
kills, but the third type of gun a specific way.
yeah.
Like they're just grindy. Like get 50, get 100, get 500, get 1,000. It's like, okay, I get it. Nathan Drake is a mass murderer, but I don't need to get a trophy for it.
No, it's funny that you say Assassin's Creed 2 because I think up to that point, playing that game, I was in the same boat of like I was obsessive of trying to 100% games. And then something clicked. I was working my way through the feathers, and I was spending way too long on one because parkour is not easy in that game.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I put down the game and I never picked it up again. And that's kind of probably the beginning of my I don't need to get every single achievement type of thing.
Oh man.
And well, also I think that for me growing up, achievements, it feels like we're a lot simpler or straightforward. Like let's say one of the first games I 100%ed was Call of Duty 2.
Mm.
And like thinking about it, they're pretty forward on what you had to do in order to get them. So getting your 100% wasn't something where you had to go out of your way. You could still play the game, enjoy it in order to do it. But I feel like as you know, the more inventive games get, more inventive the achievements get, and it can provide, you know, a lot of extras that aren't really that fun. But also, I think for me, they make certain games they prolong the fun for me. So for like in Civilization 6, I think I put in an extra few hundred hours into that game after being pretty much burnt out because I was going after those little achievements that kind of gave, you know, a new purpose to a run type of thing. So I think where I land with that is that like I get to a point of where most, you know, for games I like, okay, I'm okay, I can step back, I don't have to do everything, but I do still love creative or fun or hidden achievements. I would love to look at adding, you know, making sure that we have some really good, you know, funny type of things in our game. And I know we've talked about some to do with cats. We'll see if those happen. But so I'm hoping that when people play the game, that there's a handful of surprises that the achievements can kind of facilitate.
I think one of the most creative achievements I've ever seen was there's this game called Toem, and it was a small indie game. It's all black and white, and you're this little like character on this island, and you take photos of things, and that's like how you complete objectives. And there's this one area, it's this building, and you can look up, and it's like a black void. And I hope I'm not getting this wrong. I'm pretty sure this is how it works, but you take a picture into the black void, and what it does is when you look forward, there's this like big empty like picture frame on the wall, and it puts the picture of all the devs inside the picture frame.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it was just kind of cool and different. So that one was pretty cool.
One of my favorites is usually like when the hint is kind of vague but like you can kind of figure it out. And I remember there was the one, I think it was Far Cry 4, but Far Cry 3 might have done it first, but I can't remember the specific context in 3, where it was like finish the game in like 6 minutes. And you're like, how do you do that? And then it was just like, oh, you just don't do anything at the start of the game. You just sit there and the game is over. his face will just fly you away, and then that's it.
That's awesome.
I love dumb things like that
Mm-hmm.
that are just like, oh, that's really really silly, and like they went out of their way to like reward the player for just like kind of trolling them,
Mm-hmm.
or like going to get a sandwich or going to the bathroom and coming back and the game is over and the credits are going. You're like, what?
Yeah. I'll say the most brutal one I've ever gotten was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and that's like one of my favorite games ever. And it asks you to play the game multiple times to beat everything to get all the collectibles, but then the hardest trophy is there's this like combat gauntlet thing that you can do. It's like this VR combat gauntlet, and it's like pretty hard. But the final one is you have to fight all of the summons like in a row, and then you fight Sephiroth at the end after fighting all of them. And it's one of those things, if you die you go back to the beginning sort of thing. You have to be at like max level. You have to like look up YouTube videos on how people are like dodge rolling at certain like iframes, so you don't get hit or like one shotted. Like all these enemies have like a one hit kill thing that's like after a certain amount of time you're just doomed. So that was, oh man, I was pulling my hair out for like multiple nights on that one, but I was just like, it's the last trophy, it's the last thing to do in this game, I gotta get it. So I could definitely get crazy into this stuff, but I don't know, it's fun when they make it challenging but not like tedious. That's, I think, what's annoying to me with certain achievements, because I don't want
of tediousness.
Yeah.
Nintendo. Hate to rail against them again. Breath
This
of
is
the
your
Wild
favorite thing to do on the
Mario
podcast.
Odyssey. It is my favorite thing to do on the podcast. No, just Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. Like I always loved collecting like things in like Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and like Ocarina of Time, and all the previous Zelda games. But I feel like when we got to the Switch, they kind of took the idea and then just ran with it. So, like in Breath of the Wild is always the one that kind of like this it spurned me, and probably like made me not like Mario Odyssey as much as I should have. But as a completionist like Tyler, who loves to collect everything and do everything, get all the achievements, even if they're not there, the idea of collecting 1,000 Korok seeds sounded awful, just truly, truly terrible. But I did it.
You did it?
We had the strategy. We had the strategy guide and everything. So my wife and I were playing it, and this was like coming off of Horizon Zero Dawn, which I absolutely adored.
That was
So,
like
Breath of the
I think
Wild-
like a 40-hour solid platinum. Like you could do everything in 40 hours in Horizon Zero Dawn.
And
That felt perfect.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, it was the perfect length. I love the story. I love the exploration and the environmental storytelling. Like I could praise Horizon for days.
Mm-hmm.
Then going to Breath of the Wild was, and like being a massive Zelda fan, like we love like the 64 Zeldas, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, the Super Nintendo one, Link to the Past, like all of them. We're just massive Zelda fans. And Breath of the Wild is a breath of fresh air to the franchise, and it's really really fun if difficult. But we did all the shrines. We got like the classic costumes as the rewards for doing all the shrines. It was fun solving a lot of those puzzles. They did get a little repetitive eventually, but like the 1,000 Korok seeds was the straw that broke the camel's back. And then the actual reward, I kid you not, is a golden pile of crap, and an actual literal golden piece of crap. And I am usually one who will find that extremely funny. But after having grind that game for over 100 hours with like a newborn on my chest, like just sitting there playing it and just like grinding through Korok seeds to get an actual pile of crap, I lost it. I have never come back to Breath of the Wild ever since. And then like Mario Odyssey, they're like, oh yeah, there's like 800 moons, and I'm like, nope, I'm out, checked out, I'm done. I don't have time. Like, Nintendo burned me once, never again.
So you didn't play Tears of the Kingdom?
I have not finished Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom, I started. I did like the Wind Temple, and then got to like where it brings you to the underground, like the Dark World or whatever. And where they basically like double the game, but a lot of it's just like running around and like just exploring, which generally I'm a fan of. But like, I just like petered out of Tears of the Kingdom really, really hard, and like the primary mechanic of like building the contraptions to solve the puzzles and having different ways to do it, and like the openness of it, wasn't my cup of tea, but I 120% understand a lot of people really, really like it. But I don't know if it's like my ADHD. I don't know if it's just my like general style of player, like my age now. But like I like instruction. Like I like feeling like I figured out the puzzle that they intended for me to solve, not here's a play set, go. My dopamine hit, my reward center like really gets fired when like I solve the puzzle that they intended for me to solve the way they wanted me to solve it on my own, rather than using some stuff and using the tools at my disposal to maybe think of a solution that they couldn't possibly have ever thought of during their development process. And I 100% get why that's super appealing for a lot of people. Just not my cup of tea. It's just not for me, and that's okay.
Oh man!
But like I really wish I got into Tears of the Kingdom, because like I love the world that they built. I love that version of Hyrule.
Yeah.
And the gameplay is fun. Like the boss, like every fight is intense. Every fight is purposeful. I don't mind the food. I don't mind the weapon durability. Like a lot of the stuff they introduced in Breath of the Wild, I actually really dug, because it mixed up the gameplay a lot. But yeah, just the crafting system in Tears of the Kingdom as like the primary mechanic just it wasn't for me.
I tried to do the every moons thing twice in Mario Odyssey. I got in like fully invested in it twice, and the first time I think I got like 400, and the second time I think I got like 750, and then I was just like, I just got burnt out. It's, oh man, I loved that game though. I don't know. Yeah, all these the thing Nintendo has though is just that pure sense of like fun. Everything, it just feels fun and cheer. Even if it's a dark part of the game, it's still like cheerful somehow.
It's jolly.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just something special about it, and I just hope that they continue to keep that up. I still haven't played Donkey Kong. Is it Bonanza?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you guys played that yet?
No,
No,
but
I
I really
want
want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to get a Switch too, which is high on my to-do list. But probably waiting for the new Fire Emblem before I finally pull the trigger on a Switch 2, because like outside of Mario Kart and Donkey Kong, I don't think there's anything on the Switch 2 that's like I couldn't get on my PlayStation or PC or Xbox. So,
Yeah.
and like I don't know, it's like down in the States, but up here the Nintendo tax hits really hard after all the price conversion and everything. So, like Mario Kart World, if you don't get it with the console, is like 120 some odd dollars in Canadian rupees.
Holy
That's
smokes!
No, that's too much. I'm not like I used to pay that for N64 games back in the day.
It's not worth it.
But I don't know, like in today, like in back then, $120 is like $200 now. But like, that's just it's too much for
Mario
an
Kart.
experience that I'm going to really feel a lot of similarity to like Mario Kart 8 for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. Alex said Bonanza was very fun and rather quick game, all things considered. Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
it really reminds me of like classic Red Faction. I love the geomod technology in Red Faction, just like digging through things. And I played a demo for it at like my local EB Games or Walmart or something, and it was super fun, like digging and just like finding alternate paths and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to playing it. But yeah, it's just are those two games enough for me to drop $1,000 on a Switch right now? I don't. But like, my wife really loves Fire Emblem. It's her favorite series, so we'll definitely pick it up for that.
Nice.
I have a soft spot for Donkey Kong. One of the first games that I ever got exposed to is that my uncle had, I think it was the N64 that had Donkey Kong Country, and
Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo, excuse me. And then so we played that, and what's that worm game? Earthworm Jim.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we played those so much, and then for Christmas, I got a Game Boy and a little Donkey Kong Country that I could play, and I played so much. And I remember having kind of a crisis as a kid because I would turn off the game, and I could still hear the music playing in my head, and I'm like, I've played too much. It's happening. Everything that the adults say is true. My brain is rotting. The music won't go away. So that freaked me out for a hot second. But so all that to say, I love Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong. I love games that allow you to dig. So I'm very excited to play, but I haven't had a chance to. So yeah, hopefully
Speaking of that,
soon.
and speaking of indie games, I think Gina, you mentioned Core Keeper recently, right? In a couple episodes ago, or one of you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
I
free
enjoy
on PS Plus this past month, so I started playing it. And
Nice.
man, that game is addicting. Oh my god. I was literally like, I don't really know if it's for me. I'll play it for like an hour, and I was literally up till midnight, like 4 hours later, playing that thing. It's just like they don't tell you what to do at all. Like, it took me forever just to figure out, like, oh, I can like hit the wood things to get wood logs, like right at the very beginning of the game. But
Yeah.
once you start figuring out the mechanics, you just keep going and going and going and going. And then you're like, oh, now I can start laying down mine tracks. Oh, now I can get from point A to point B quicker. Oh, now I have an egg and I can hatch little creatures that can help me out. It's so cool. And I was playing in single player too. I wasn't even playing with friends, so I was really digging that game.
Yeah, I really love the inventory system in that game. And just like being able to walk in the room and dump all my stuff wherever it goes is yes.
So
I want that in all of my crafter games.
so are you one of those people that will like make nice little spaces and like kind of like build like floors and stuff? Cuz like I'm kind of just slamming things like in an area to shove them off so I can continue on my adventure.
And the way I usually play them is I want to get all of the things, and then at the end I will go back and make everything, beautiful and the way I want it. And by that time I'm done, and I don't really enjoy it, so maybe it's not the greatest approach. But yeah, I see all of the beautiful builds that people do, and I'm really jealous of them, and I want to do that. But I'm like, oh, I got to get to this part of the game to
Yeah.
get that thing so I can do this, and then end up, yeah, staying up all night, just mining or killing or or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good game. The other thing I was thinking about too, a little bit earlier in the conversation, we were talking about we were talking about the story stuff and just how it feels like it kind of needs to fit and be natural. But then Tyler, you were talking about like sometimes like it's a video game, they kind of just need to say stuff. Do you guys have any mechanics in games that are video game things that kind of like tick you off? So, like, for example, this one doesn't bother me necessarily, but it's one of those things that people talk about all the times. But like the white paint on the ledges, like if you're if you're
Like yellow
climbing,
everywhere, yeah.
someone's just like painting the ledges. Oh, like, oh, you could climb here. So, do you guys have anything like that where you're like, like the other thing too is like when people pull their swords out of a sheath on their back, like makes no sense. It always clips through the sheath, you know?
Video game logic that bothers me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no.
Do you ever come across dialogue where they're like, it's way too dumb, you know? Or do you
I'm not
usually
a
give it
fan
a
of,
pass?
I usually give it a pass, but I'm not a fan of like hand holding necessarily. Like, I don't need every exact step laid out for me all the time. I do like some freedom to explore to a degree. One thing that has kind of drives me nuts in particularly open world games, and I think kind of Ubisoft is probably the main culprit here. I remember back when Assassin's Creed Unity came out, someone had posted like a picture of the map, and I hadn't picked it up yet, but like someone posted a picture of just like the opening map when you start the game, and it's just nothing but icons. We've got this like beautiful and really cool to navigate like 3D recreation of Paris, but it's just like a sea of icons
Littered with
and
icons.
like all this stuff to do. Like, I think you can like, no, you don't have to handle it, but like you can like distribute that out a little bit better, or like filter it out a little bit more naturally. Alex just said in chat, tower climbing to reveal the map again, classic Assassin's Creed. gameplay mechanic there of like getting a view of everything, and now your map is filled out. I don't mind that so much. I like it when it's like some sort of puzzle. So I think some of the Assassin's Creeds got a little bit more creative with it as time went on, and Horizon Zero Dawn was another one. But yeah, just like I think when different games in the same genre by different companies follow the same standard set of mechanics by and large, like tower climbing is a really bad one for that. That's probably what kind of upsets me the most. I know some people, and I was having a conversation with a friend about this the other day, when the narrative will kind of try to wrap around needing to teach you how to play, like how to use the controller, or how to use buttons and stuff like that. Be like, oh yeah, just jump over there, it's fine. But then you'll get some games like Metal Gear that have no shame in saying push the action button. Yeah. And like that's just part of like Otacon's dialogue.
Yeah.
Of like it's like no, Snake is like legitimately playing a game, but he's also there. I like Kojima, genius. I love how he's not afraid just to like shatter the fourth wall.
Yeah.
And then just like incorporate that into the world as if it's perfectly fine. We don't acknowledge that like Otacon goes on like a 10-minute diatribe about how Blu-ray allows for things to be so big, and now we no longer need to switch discs in Metal Gear Solid 4. And that's why we've never seen Metal Gear Solid 4 ported anywhere. Is probably because of all the weird things that Otacon says to praise the PlayStation 3. I absolutely adore it. But yeah, I love stuff like that. I will generally fall in love with more of like those weird quirks than I'll get like really mad about them. But like I will occasionally let out like an exasperated sigh when I see the same mechanic has just become a universal part of a particular genre. Mm-hmm. Like all first-person shooters need to have iron sights now. All third-person shooters needed to have cover base mechanics. So it's when you get to like Space Marine. I think the first Space Marine, we were like, no, Space Marines don't cover. Space Marines don't cower. Space Marines march forward. It was like, finally, yeah. Something different. So yeah, I dig when I really dig when games like buck the trends and aren't afraid to either like revert back to what worked before or try something new in face of like standardization.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that does bother me that's kind of a video gamey thing, and a lot of this comes from old school limitations, but you still see them in like RPGs, usually JRPGs, but like you walk up to someone and you don't even initiate conversation and they talk to you and they're like, I love to dance. And you're just like, no one asked you. Stuff like that.
No, I'm with you there. And I think, man, it goes similar to what we were talking about before about kind of wanting the characters in the world to feel a bit more natural. I mean, the conversation that we've had many times talking about certain scenes, certain quests of like, why does this person care or trust the main character at all? Like this rando walks up and says, hi. And you're like, here, do this really important thing for me. And what we really tried to do is try to make sure that there was at least some clear set of reasoning on something plausible on why a character would trust you or want to work with you. And oftentimes it's actually it turns into a plot point into a good portion of our quest lines of people not trusting you and what that means, or a Gia not trusting other people. And I think it comes back to maybe this really big theme of how the reason why we use history is that pulling from reality makes things more interesting, or at least demands things to be more interesting. I think a lot of games fall into, or a lot of stories that I've seen fall into some really generic cookie cutter path of stories have to follow X, Y, and Z because that's what stories do. When the most interesting stories are stories that follow the restrictions of the world and try to follow what the world is actually asking for. So, for example, there was at one point there was a fetch quest where we needed the player to go do a thing, right? And if you You go to a person, you talk to a person, they're like, here, do this for me. And you go do the thing, you come back. Fairly simple, fairly straightforward, not very exciting, eventful. But if you add the element of a lack of trust, where if you meet the person, you talk with them, and you have to build trust, you have to build rapport, and maybe they ask you to do something, they don't give you all the information, or they have you maybe they send you out for an ambush type of thing, or because of that lack of information they give you because they don't trust you, you have to deal with some sort of problem down the line. And that interplay of trust warping how the mission plays makes it so that we can write something more interesting.
Mm.
And so I think having that element of keeping things grounded in the real world actually makes story and mechanics flow easier in that regard. So yeah, I think yeah, to go along with the idea of like what are the things that bug me? I think narratively, yeah, when people trust you right away, when they just go along with it, and they're like, "Oh, hello, hero. Please help me find my sheep." Because you look like a hero.
Yeah.
I think
Or like, I'll join your
yeah.
journey for the rest of your life just because. I see that all the time too.
Oh, well, and that's another thing that we worked on is that you have this party of heroes that kind of you collect over time.
Hmm.
And I would say that your party is pretty reluctant, and we try to deal with that, throughout the story because the people you're collecting are unified by like temporary cause.
Mm.
They don't necessarily like you, but that's something that can grow and change. And so there's several points in time where, heroes are about to walk away and you have to like sit down and be like, hey, these are the things that I've learned about you that are important, right? I learned that you value X, Y, and Z. And because of that, I think you should stay around, even though your initial reason for helping me is over and done with. A lot of this happens kind of the movement between Act 2 and 3, where you've got part of the story kind of wraps up. And so some of the heroes are just like, well, we've done the thing we're meant to do.
Mm.
And the Gia has to be like, hold on. I mean, if the reasons that you did all this was to, improve your lives or the people around you, or to, follow that dream, woohoo, then you need to go a little bit further because this also does those goals, right? But you wouldn't be able to make that argument, make that case if you didn't know the characters, the people, right? If you hadn't come to know them. And I think that's pretty similar to like real life on people like long-term friends.
Hmm.
You might become friends initially due to circumstances. Let's say, you met them at school, right? You're forced together every day for a good portion of your life. And then it's time to to leave and move forward. And if you like that person, you say, hey, those years of history we have forced in proximity, and I've learned this about you. Well, these are things that we can keep doing based off the information. Let's become friends outside that context.
Hmm.
And that feels more natural than you going to school and someone be like, we are friends and I'll follow you to the end of the earth. And you don't have to learn another thing about me or even earn this relationship at any point. Um, so yeah, but I think it all comes back to how can we use reality to make stories more interesting and lifelike.
Yeah, I think a game that nailed exactly what you're talking about is Persona 5. At least for
Mm.
me, that game had some of the best characters I've ever seen in a game. Like they were all very distinct. They all had their own arcs. I mean, there was tons and tons and tons of dialogue to kind of back up these arcs, kind of like our game. Like there's just so much dialogue that I'm sure the players will really start to feel like those characters are their friends as well, or at least like acquaintances. And
Mhm.
I remember when I beat Persona 5, I was like almost sad because I felt like they were
Mm.
it's like this weird thing like, oh, they're my friends too, and now the story's done. And I don't think I'd ever felt that way with a video game before, just because of how often you're doing things that kind of, it's not history, but it's so real world. Like they're going to school constantly. Like, we've all been to
Mhm.
school. We know
Mhm.
what it feels like to go to school with classmates and then have summer break and hang out with them and then go play video games with them and do all the things. So yeah, it really touched on that kind of human relatable element that I thought was really, really cool. So Yeah, I mean, I still haven't really like I've, you know, as the marketing artist, there's kind of periods where I'm like deeply going into the game, and then other times where I'm just having to blow through dialogue just to capture clips. So I still haven't gotten the full on experience of like really hanging out with these characters, and I'm just so excited to dive in, because I know a lot of the plot points, but I don't have the context yet of how things get from point A to point B to point C. So yeah, that'll be cool. I think
Yeah, I've been playing
Alex.
Dragon myself, yeah, and enjoying it. But Alex says that some of the narrative contrivances that cause a party to immediately trust a past villain now turned an ally despite the awful stuff they did to the hero is definitely annoying to him. And then another one was button prompts appearing over an enemy to counter a mechanic. Started in Batman Arkham Asylum, but even today shows up in Space Marine 2 and it bugs him.
So wait, like button prompts like on the screen, like
they're
the
floating
X
over their
button.
head.
Oh yeah, that bothers me too. It's like they should just teach you what the button is, or have like a reminder in the UI panel or something like that. But yeah,
One current trend that I've been digging is like some games will let you just turn off the UI or like decrease the amount of on-screen elements.
Yeah.
Like they'll give you like a minimal experience, which I appreciated. I think when I played through Horizon Forbidden West the first time, I kept a lot of the UI stuff on because I actually really like I appreciate UI design coming from a graphic design background. UI and UX is something that is important to me. But I think when I got to the expansion for Forbidden West, Forgotten Shore, whatever it is, I turned off the UI, and I really appreciated just like the immersion that brought with it to a degree. Like it is a different vibe when you play the game. There were moments where I felt like I really needed to turn it on, but for the most part, I tried to keep it at a minimum. And I think the next time I play through like a Spider-Man or
I feel like Spider-Man though, you have to see like your web, how much web you have left and stuff like that, right?
Not really. The big thing it would turn off would be popping up like the column, like when you put like triangle and circle or square and X or whatever to do like the finishers.
Oh yeah.
Turning stuff like that off, and then relying. I think they do this in UI already, but to do like the dodges and the parries is just like the spider sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the color, colorization of the spider sense will tell you which one you need to do. Because my son plays Spider-Man a lot, it's his favorite game. I crank the UI help up to help him play, because his reflexes, he's just not as used to it as I am. So when I play it, I usually just keep them all on. So I want to give it a try, like reducing the assistance back down to a minimum, because I play with a higher difficulty, but all of the other assistants are still on. So I want to try dropping that down and like just going like full immersion, like I am Peter Parker and I have to trust my own reflexes to do good at this game. I think I can do it, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it because there would definitely be some challenging spots in the second one that would be difficult without some of the UI assistant.
Yeah.
But on your point, Tyler, about characters feeling like they have narrative purpose and like handing you a quest. I just played through one of the side quests here where you meet the fence, like you see the shop get shot up, and then you get the quest from him, and then you have to go talk to Contanzo or whatever it is in the commercial district in Way Street. I really appreciated sitting here kind of reading and following along how Gia stumbles upon that quest, like the reaction and like how you have to like work to get the quest from the from Fence initially. Like it's a series of skill checks, or it's a skill check to get it, along with like saying the right things in the dialogue and like how their back and forth works. But then also like when you go and hand in the contraband to the restaurateur in the commercial district, I really appreciated Like, oh, he, like, even though Gia didn't know him, he knew of Gia because he just needs to know everyone, and like would reference past things that happened in what would be a previous game or a previous history.
Right.
I always dig stuff like that, and I thought that was like a topical comment that you had brought up, given I was actually playing through that exact kind of moment in the game here on the stream at the same time.
That's cool.
I think it's that history. To go back to kind of the very beginning, we're talking about hand holding with players, and I think one thing that we really tried to do with a lot of the story is assume the player intelligent enough to pick up on details or context or subtext to read into it. And I think while one thing that I really disliking is this whole the Netflix approach to writing, the two screen writing, which is becoming big, right? Netflix has this whole thing where movies, or supposedly, where Netflix says that movies need to be dumbed down enough to where if the person is on their phone at the same time, it still makes sense. And Monica and I were watching a movie before, and it goes into how like they say the plot point like every 10 minutes. This is what we're doing. This is what we have to do. You know, this is why we're doing it. And it keeps repeating itself over and over again. And there's like nothing is left to subtext. If a character is like a thing, or if they're thinking a thing, they say it out loud. Or if there's some sort of mystery, they say, well, isn't that a mystery? Or it's a mystery that I'm doing this. And everything is just obvious. And I think one thing that was important for us is when we were writing with the characters and the storyline, that we if the player is thinking about it, they're going to get more out of it. There is so much hidden relationship and so much hidden history that you get from both the voice delivery, but also just the writing, saying, like, in any given conversation, let's say, Cody, you and me, that you and I were we were those people that like picked up stuff on the track and field event at an Olympics a few years ago. Like, that was our shared history. You and I aren't going to bring that up every day. But, you know, you and I, while we're talking about it, we may reference our summer in Paris, and the like, right? We might have those comments that go back and forth, and we'll never talk about that thing that we did to each other, but it adds that kind of richness and depth and believability to relationships that I think is something that has been really important to us. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. All right. I think we can kind of wrap it up. We're at the top of the hour. But that was a fun conversation. I think we'll have you back again, Tyler, in a week or two to talk narrative design with Dean, which I think would be cool. You guys can kind of talk about how you collaborated on some of this stuff, him like kind of integrating all of this writing into the game. So yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and you can expect to see us next week. Hop in the Discord to watch us live, and don't forget to wishlist Aether and Iron on Steam. Cool. We'll see you guys later.
Thanks, everybody.